Hello, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharp. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Go ahead and put your questions in the comments now so that I can answer your questions. I have a bit of immigration news tonight, so I want to hop on to tell you about this news and tell you what it entails. So just today, the change occurred on August 22nd, but it was announced today by the USCIS. They're now going to be doing here's something new again for citizenship. And yes, it is regarding good moral character. Once again, it's adding some complexities to the application process, and that is the good neighbor check. So if this is the first time you're hearing about this, the good neighbor check, then that's normal because it was a law that was dormant for 30 years. So that the good neighbor check, and here's the alarming part, is the type of investigation that USCIS can do. The way they're going to do it is by interviewing neighbors, interviewing your boss, interviewing people that are in your community to see and make sure that what is in your application is consistent with what your neighbor does. So the good neighbor check, that's exactly what I'm explaining. So they're basically gonna, put boots to the ground, going into your neighborhood and go interview your neighbor and go interview. So, yes, this does raise alarm bells because it's intrusive, especially if you live in an area where you mind your own business and you don't talk to your neighbors. Maybe you don't feel like talking to the neighbors. Then what? If they go ask the neighbor and the neighbor has some bad stuff to say, what if the neighbor decides to be vindictive? Um, so that is what's happening. Not another thing to keep in mind is that that's going to add to processing times. But we are solution oriented. So here's what you need to do. This can be avoided. The good neighbor check can be avoided. And here's how you can do that. Once again, you have to put a strong application together at the forefront. So instead of waiting for immigration to go find people to interview, you can then reach out to people in your community and get letters of recommendations or get good moral character letters from people in your community, from people that you work closely with, because they can do the good neighbor check is not only your neighbors but your employer. So they can go to your employer and ask the employer, how are you at work? They're going to want to know from the neighbor and the employer, what kind of person are you? In their opinion, are you a person of good moral character? And what's your belief system? Do you have values that align with the values that they believe are American values? So you can put that together beforehand so that it paints a picture for the officer and the officer can be satisfied with what they get, and they may not make the decision to then go out and actually go and interview, physically, go face to face with your neighbors and your boss and go interview. So, get letters of recommendation from your boss, from your past employers, from your neighbors, if you're close to your neighbors, from friends in your community, from your church. So, yes, it is another cumbersome aspect of this application process. But I say this, just stay one step ahead by taking this, abiding by the strategy. this strategy by being ahead, right? Don't wait for them to have to do something. Start to put a solid application together and put that material, the documents in there so that they can be satisfied, and you may not necessarily have to deal with the cumbersome and scary situation that they're going to go interview people in your community that maybe you don't even talk to. So yes, that is going to be the new reality. So I help with this. So if you want to make sure that you're approaching this correctly, you're getting it right at the start from the forefront, get in touch with us here at SD Law Office and we can help you to get this put together to make sure you're submitting a solid application. But this is what, and was a law. It is an existing federal law. So once again, they're not writing something into new law. This is an existing law that they had waived for 30 years, for the past 30 years. But this administration has decided that they're going to add some extra steps to the citizenship process. And this is it. I do expect that this is going to make processing times longer for those that they're not satisfied with what you've provided. And they might put your application on a sort of hold until they do an investigation. And we all know how that goes, guys. The minute they're looking further into things, they're doing extra checks, it's another year on top. Even after the interview, you're looking at another year, right? So we may see citizenship applications go for years now instead of just 2 to 6 months. That it hasn't changed yet, but I can just imagine if they're now including interviews of neighbors and bosses, your employers, that that's going to add some time because they need people on the ground to do that work. And right now they don't even have enough people to complete the 3 million applications that are pending right now. So here it is. But we are here to help. We're solution oriented, and go ahead and give us a call. If you're not giving us a call, make sure you are getting representation. And I'm not just talking about citizenship. As you can see, it's as if all immigrants are in the same boat, no matter how you came, no matter what you have to show your legal status, no matter if you're ready to get to the end of the process as a US citizen, you're applying for US citizenship. It's all becoming more challenging. Policies are changing. And because of that, when it comes to immigration, nothing is simple, right? The way that they have restructured these policies is you can overcome these policies. You absolutely can, but you need to understand the procedural requirements. You need to be able to approach this with care and strategically to ensure it's done correctly. Because where there are going to be devastating mistakes is where there are going to be devastating consequences is with the mistakes or with the not knowing how to do it and doing it anyway, right? This is one process that they will not spoon feed applicants. They are not there to help you. So, one thing I've seen is people call sometimes and they say they call the USCIS and ask somebody at the USCIS if they qualify to apply for adjustment of status. And the person at USCIS, the people that answer the phone at USCIS, would actually give them their 2 cents and tell them, oh yeah, go ahead and apply for adjustment of status, right? Instead of just telling them they need to get an attorney. That's what they're supposed to do. But I have had instances where they at the USCIS actually tell them, oh, you don't, you can do it this way, or you can submit this application, absolutely. And then they do it and they don't qualify, right? And you can't turn around now and say the USCIS officer told you, because at the end of the day, they are not your attorneys. They're not there to help you or advocate for you. So don't call USCIS asking them for advice. You need to be going to somebody who's going to be in your corner and giving you individualized legal advice. Don't go into this blindly. Don't think you can just like play around with the process and hopefully you get it right. And if not, maybe you'll have a chance to fix it. Don't take those risks, because that's where we are right now. Unfortunately, they are structuring it to be more complicated, more cumbersome, more steps to it, more requirements. So please be very careful going forward. The first thing you need to do is, whatever you're applying for, make sure you get, before you jump into it, get legal advice to understand what is it you're going into, right? Are you qualified, and how do you move forward? All right. Okay, so I just came on to, at first I was just gonna hop on quickly to do questions, and then I saw the news about the new, once again, another change, and I had to pause to make sure I got all the information here, to convey that to you. So it's been a long day, but now I'm going to answer questions. So put your questions in the comments so I can answer your questions. I see a lot of questions coming in. I'm on Instagram. Hello on Instagram. I'm on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. And I am on TikTok. So put those questions in the comments. I see a lot of questions coming in on TikTok. Go ahead. I see Dora Colbert. You have a question on Instagram. Put your question in. I'm here to answer. So I'm going to start on TikTok though, because I see some questions coming in. So I'm going to start there and then move my way over. Hello, Danielle. Hi, Diane. Hi, Veronica. Hi, Natalie on YouTube. It's nice to see you. Case Robbins, can I travel domestically via work permit? The work permit, as long as valid and current, should be a type of document that you're able to travel in domestically with. Absolutely. Okay, good. All right. How much to hire a lawyer to go to the interview? So it depends on the lawyer. Here at our firm, what we do is it's a part of our once the client hires us, then we give them the option to attend the interview. So it's, it is, we always have that as an option for our clients. Okay. On TikTok, I'm approved for VAWA I-360. Congrats. How long it takes to get the I-485? You're looking at about a year right now. They may call you for an I-485 interview. David, you're welcome. Thanks for the gifts. Thanks for the love. I appreciate it on TikTok. I'm looking at doing a K1 visa. So if you're a US citizen or your fiance is a US citizen, then the K1 visa would work. K1 visa is the fiance visa. You can give us a call. We also help with that. So give us a call. We can work with you on it. Hello, attorney. Hi there, La Madrina. Our AOS and work permit of people who come under the Biden program on hold. So those are not. Now, keep in mind that people who came on parole are not, they don't automatically qualify for adjustment of status. But if you have a family member here who, and you're ready to apply for AOS, then that is not on hold. And you should still be able to move forward as long as you qualify for AOS. So definitely, once again, before you do anything, make sure you're talking to an attorney. That's why we're here to help. And our phone number is 24/7. So you can actually call the office right now and then get on our schedule, because our schedules are filling up. So you want to get on the schedule so that we can talk to you and help you as soon as possible to move forward in your process. AOS is possible if you have parole, but you just have to make sure that you qualify for adjustment of status. How about drug conviction and son is a US citizen? So that now with that one, we do have to look at the what happened. If there is a waiver for drug conviction, if it was a certain amount. So we have to look at what happened. We have to see what if it disqualifies you, and then we have to see if there's a way to overcome it with a waiver. So give us a call. This is very important because having a drug conviction can also be deportable. So you want to make sure you understand where you stand before you take any actions to apply. You understand how to fix it properly. Thanks for the shares. I appreciate it. The church and convalescent home. Okay, that must be somebody giving advice. How long does it take to receive an answer after you submit I-601 waiver for misrepresentation? So I would say it could be a year and a half to 2 years for waivers to be approved. So it does take a while. Now, sometimes at the adjustment of status interview, if it goes along, if that waiver you handed it in with um, a petition, then the officer will sometimes make a decision at the same time on that waiver. But if, say, you're doing consular processing, then you go to consular processing, then they tell you they can't approve you right now, but you qualify for a waiver, and then they'll give you a special sheet, and you can use that sheet to then apply for the waiver. So I don't know which way you're going, but usually in the latter, it's going to be 2 years to decide it. All right. So now I'm on YouTube and Facebook. So let's see what's here. Hello. How long is I-130 taking for a person in the USA for spousal? So now, if I would say a year to a year and a half right now, the I-130 is taking, but it also depends on who is, you said spousal, but permanent resident or US citizen. If it's a US citizen or your spouse is a permanent resident, but you qualify to apply for adjustment of status now, then it may be faster. You may get a decision on that I-130 at the interview. So it all depends. Are receipt notices taking unusually longer lately? Yes, it is. It's taking 3 to 4 months for some applications. I have filed my vow on April 2025. No receipt notice until now. Is it normal? Yes. So 3 to 4 months. So yeah, 3 to 4 months for the receipt notice to come. How long is Form I-130 taking for a person in the USA, please? Oh, answer that. US citizen, parent, sponsor, adult, unmarried children. Prior to date 2020, I-130 pending. How long again for approval? So that is a 5 to 7 year process total, along with another maybe 2 years to get to the interview. So somewhere between that, I find with those, the I-130 approval takes a little longer, somewhere between that, because even if they approve your I-130, they're not going to process you for the green card until your priority date becomes current, which is probably around the 7th year. So they are not prioritizing decisions on those I-130s. So I've seen those go for years without a decision within that 5 to 7 year period. I applied for T visa and did my biometrics in December. How long will it take to get my work permit? So I'd say expect 8 months. First, you get the bona fide determination letter and then the work permit. What chances do J1 teachers get an NOS waiver? And how long will it take? So, about a year to a year and a half. Should someone on an F1 visa admit that she worked unauthorized for her spousal based green card? Is that forgivable in this unpredictable time? And this is exactly why I say it's crucial to make sure you have an attorney. This question is a good question you're asking, but a lot of people make mistakes of assuming that if you're married to a US citizen but you've worked here without authorization, that you are going to be found inadmissible. And that's not the case, right? They don't hold working without a permit against you if you have been, if you're here adjusting status as the spouse of a U.S. citizen. You have to distinguish though between being the spouse of a U.S. citizen versus being the spouse of a permanent resident. Now, it should someone on an F1 visa admit that she worked unauthorized? I can't give you specific legal advice, but what I can tell you is that I can never advise a client to not tell the truth, right? So if it's the truth, the best thing to do is tell your attorney what happened so your attorney can understand the best way to approach it. But the tragedy with this situation is a lot of people will go ahead and put no, they didn't work without authorization. And then immigration does a background check and finds that they did work. And the immigration can try to argue that you committed fraud or misrepresentation by lying. So it's and the whole tragedy is that that never had to happen in the first place because they would have not denied your application based on working without a permit. Now, they're in situations like this, keep in mind this is not legal advice because I have to understand the full picture, right? Um, in under what circumstances did you work without authorization? Did you ever represent to an immigration officer when you were a student that you did not work without that you didn't work without authorization? Because in that case that might be an issue. So get an attorney. Cannot stress it enough, guys. I'm telling you this because I am seeing it firsthand that people are going to, based on how complex these scenarios are and the rules and the policies and the detail at which they're looking at things, you want to have somebody in your corner that understands the procedural requirements now. Okay, so hello there, Kay. Um, what month? I'm not sure I understand the question. So I am going to assume the question is saying how long after submitting a T visa application do you get the work permit? That's the most common question. I would say right now. So right now, what's happening is it's taking 3 to 4 months to get the receipt notice. So hopefully that improves. But so from the point we get the receipt notice, then about a month or two after, it's going to be the biometrics. And then about a month or two after that is BFD, bona fide determination. And then I would say about another 4 months later. Actually, this past work permit that we got it the same time as the BFD. So they may be improving now because this last permit that we got yesterday, we got the work permit at the same time as the bona fide determination letter. And the bona fide determination letter also provides protection from removal. But we got the both of them at the same time. And before, what was happening is we would get the bona fide determination letter, and then about 4 months later, would get the work permit. So I would say it's really like a solid 8 months before you're gonna be seeing the work permit for the T visa. But keep in mind that you get it at the 8 month mark, around the 8 month mark, but it's taking almost 2 years now to decide a T visa. And this work permit is 4 year work permit. So it offers a sufficient amount of time. Now, keep in mind that if you are a client, please make sure you are communicating with us. Don't communicate through the chat. We want to keep you protected, and we want to keep your information confidential. So make sure you're contacting us directly. Now, if you want a personalized legal appointment, make sure you're calling the office and you go ahead and schedule time, because our schedule is filling up. Okay, so now I'm on Instagram and I see more questions. So I'm going to answer these questions. If you have a waiver for misrepresentation and the work permit help, they can give you back a permit in space at the time. They may, as long as they are waiting for your application to be decided, and maybe they're waiting on the waiver, then once they wait for the waiver, they in the meantime they will give you your work permit, or they may leave you with your work permit. Hi, Althea. Can a visitor with a visitor's visa open an account in the United States? Usually yes, but keep in mind that you open that bank account. I have seen situations where people are coming in on the visitor's visa and they have their banking information on their phone. The officer searches their phone, and then they can look at the activities in the bank account, and they can see things that, if they see anything that implies that the person opened the bank account to collect money, to work, to conduct activities that they're not supposed to do while on a visitor's visa, that can be a problem. So just be wary about why. Anybody can open a bank account in the US, of course. You have people that don't work here, but they maybe have savings. They maybe have passive investments here. They have property here, and they have the bank account to be able to conduct business here. But you just have to make sure that whatever you're doing in that bank account, it's complying. Are toddlers 5 years old expected to attend the interview? So if the toddler is going for the green card, well, I wouldn't say a 5-year-old is a toddler, but if your 5-year-old is going to get their green card, or they're a part of the process of getting the papers, then unless they clearly state they're waiving the interview, if they instruct you, send an interview letter in your child's name, saying that they're now going to consider them for the green card, then definitely make sure you take your child with you, unless they clearly state they're waiving their attendance. I'm an asylum seeker with a pending court case, and I'm married to a citizen. We have our first interview, and they scheduled us for a second interview, and I have misunderstanding with her. We get denied because she didn't go. Can I do anything about it? So it depends on the circumstances. We have had situations like that where our clients, was being mistreated by their spouse. Their spouse didn't go to the interview. Actually, in this case, the spouse went to the interview out of spite, completely, sabotaged her process, got her denied, and she's now a 10-year green card holder right now. In your case, they didn't show up and it was a second interview, which is alarming because that's usually a Stokes interview. So in that case, there may be something that you can qualify for, but we have to find out what the circumstances were, and in order to determine whether that option is going to be the best option for you. Give us a call. That's the most important thing you can do right now. Should someone on F1 visa admit that he worked unauthorized in this time? Husband is filing a marriage-based green card for her. So I think I answered this question previously on YouTube. What I would say is, now, just at face value, working without permission while being sponsored, or if you are the spouse of a U.S. citizen and you've ever worked without permission in the United States, that alone is not going to get you denied. So you need to tell the truth. However, what were the circumstances surrounding the working without authorization, and was there more to it? And is because if there's more to it, can it lead to another charge like misrepresentation or some other immigration violation? But just by working without a permit, it's not going to stop you from getting your green card if you are the immediate relative of a U.S. citizen. That means you're the spouse of a U.S. citizen, you're the parent of a U.S. citizen, or you're the son or daughter under 21 and unmarried of a U.S. citizen. My kid, someone on F1 status, admit he worked unauthorized. Her spouse is filing a marriage base green card for her. So I think I answered that. Get legal advice, though, if you're concerned about it. I'm in my last year of nursing. Now, in that case, keep in mind, if the officer came up, if someone made the mistake of saying, no, I didn't work without authorization when they really did, and the officer determined that is misrepresentation, there is a defense there that can be used. And that is, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but the fact that whether you worked without a permit or not, would have never stopped you from getting your green card. It is arguable that it's not a material fact, right? Because for it to be misrepresentation, you would have to show that you basically misled the officer or lied about a material fact that would have swayed the officer's decision one way or the other, had they known the information. So this is why it's important that if you are accused of misrepresentation or fraud, you get legal advice and you understand whether there is a way to challenge that. Because even if you made that mistake, which I don't want anybody to make that mistake, but if somebody made that mistake of saying, I didn't work without permission when they did, and immigration finds out, they may accuse you of misrepresentation. So don't make that mistake. And that's why I say from the start, make sure you have an attorney to help guide you through this. What is a U determination letter timeline? It's about I would say 2 years right now. How long did thank you for the love on TikTok. I appreciate it. And the likes and the shares and the gifts. Thank you. How long did the EAD take to come from your T visa client that you discussed about yesterday? About 8 months. Or 6 months, actually. 6 months, because we filed this year. So it's 6 months, and the bona fide determination letter and the work permit came at the same time. That doesn't usually happen. Can I travel domestically via work permit? So I answered that. Let's see. What's happening with the T after biometrics? So we are getting some work permits and bona fide determination letters. So after the biometrics, we expect the immigration to make a decision on the bona fide determination letter. And then now this is a discretionary benefit. So once they make a decision on that, then we could expect to see the work permit at some time, at the same time or after issuance of the bona fide determination letter. Bona fide determination letters are about 3 months after the biometrics. I sent my T visa application to Nebraska in May, but I didn't receive the receipt yet. Is it normal? Yes, I'd say 3 to 4 months right now. Hello, good night. I got prima facie in January 2025 after my VAWA was filed in December 2024. How long is it taking for the work permit? Expect 6 months to a year. Is it a good thing if you want to be American? We should hear from people around you before we give you that opportunity. I don't believe it's a constructive policy. Um, it's going to be a lot of time and resources to do that, and then it may not necessarily be reliable because neighbors around you they themselves may be vindictive. They themselves may jump on this immigration bashing immigrants uh, bandwagon, and tell lies or badmouth you. And so I think it's too subjective of a policy, and it can get dangerous, especially in this climate. So one recommendation I have is when you are submitting the application from the get-go, submit your letters of recommendations. If you have people in your community you're close to, get letters from there. Get letters from your pastor, get letters from your coworker, get letters from your bosses, get letters from family members, just to paint the picture of who you are in your community. And based on the what you present, they may not opt to go and do a neighbor or employer interview. How long does it take to get the online access code after receipt notice? So I've seen it come within like a week or two of the receipt notice. Good night. If I am visiting, can I change my status to student without showing proof of funds? So no, it's going to be the same process. Only thing, USCIS is going to determine it. They're going to make a decision on it, and they're still going to require that you show how you're going to pay and support yourself here on the student visa. What's your office number? So if you look at the screen at the ticker going across, you'll see the phone number. So go ahead. It's 561-405-4889. Go ahead and call that number. You can call right now. Thank you so much for the compliment. I appreciate it. If you fill your I-485 form, work on authorized as no and want to change to yes during interview. So this is where you definitely need to make sure you have legal guidance going forward. Whatever information is on your application that is you made a mistake or you want to correct, the interview is going to be the place you do it. You have to do it before the officer starts to accuse you of something, right? Before the officer finds it and then says, was this fraud? And then that's when you say, I'm so sorry, right? At that point, the officer can then say, okay, well, we're going to charge you with misrepresentation. But if you correct it before that happens, then you can avert misrepresentation charge, right? But keep in mind, I'm not your attorney, so I can't give you specific legal advice. How you approach this is going to depend on the facts on a whole. And so it's important to make sure you're talking to your attorney, or you give us a call, let's talk. But this is where, guys, it's important because once mistakes are made, it's stressful. And sometimes mistakes can't be undone, and it means that you will face the consequences of those mistakes, whether willful or not. So before you even file those papers, make sure you're prioritizing having an advocate, having a legal representative carry you through the process that knows the process and understands how to file these. I got 2-year green card after interview. Will I still go to interview when removed conditions? If we are still have the same rules, absolutely, they are gonna call you for another interview when you're going from 2-year to 10-year. With an E2 visa business owner and E2 spouse, do we need to request for work permit? So being an E2 business owner, you don't need to have a work permit. Your E2 spouse does need to have the work permit. Unless they have, and it depends because I'd have to check to see if they have, with some spouses, they've created policies where the E2 spouse can work incident to the benefit they have. So they don't need to apply. For example, L2 spouses, but I'm not sure with the E2. So I'd have to double check that. But traditionally, the E2 spouse would go ahead and apply for their work permit. What are the benefits of having an attorney at the immigration interview? So keep in mind that it's not just about the interview, right? If you've done something with your application that has that's going to catch up with you at the interview, sometimes having the attorney there is not going to fix the situation. That's why I say get the attorney before you file and make sure that attorney is working with you while you're filing. That attorney is filing, right? That's what we do. We do full representation from beginning to end for our clients. And the reason being, the attorney can help to prevent these things from happening. Now, having an attorney at the interview, how it can benefit you is that, for example, when I go to an interview, if the questioning is going down a pathway that's not in line with what the law says, I can just let the officer know that that's not necessarily the law. And the officer does take that into consideration at that point, right? So sometimes you are, as the advocate, you can then point the officer in the right direction if you see they're making a mistake of law or they're making assumptions that are unfounded. Then the attorney can be there to be able to jump in and advocate where the client wouldn't necessarily identify what is happening, right? So that has, that I've seen multiple times where that has made a difference in the outcome for my clients, right? When I go in there and my clients are stumped because maybe the questioning is going in the wrong direction, it's not aligned with what the client is applying for, then I can, or the officer may be applying too high of a standard to the client. For example, in VAWA cases, if they start to say, well, do you have proof beyond a doubt that you were abused by your spouse? That's too high of a standard, right? So the officer should be looking at any credible evidence, meaning anything that's believable. So that means that at that point, the officer would have to make sure that they're bringing down the expectations on the standard of proof. So, there are benefits to having the attorney there, but the attorney's job does get harder if you made a mistake on the application and now they're going into an interview where they can only sit there. And if you made a mistake that you're clearly wrong on, that attorney is not going to be able to help you at that point, right? It's going to be very hard. What is the process to obtain a work permit? So work permits can be obtained in different ways, and it depends on what you qualify for. That's where you can give us a call and we evaluate a number of options to determine which one could benefit you and come along with the work permit. I'm getting married outside the US to a US citizen. What's the process now for a green card? So your US citizen spouse is going to file what's called the I-130 in the US. Once the I-130 has to show that you have a bona fide marriage. Once that's approved, they will then arrange for an interview at the embassy. So the whole process takes about 2 to 3 years right now. All right. All right. So on YouTube, if I applied in the past for an I-539 and was denied, I have to disclose this in the I-192. Is it an immigration benefit? So yeah, whatever application, I can't answer about specific questions on the I-192. Make sure you have an attorney that talk to your attorney about it. But if they're asking a question about past applications that you've applied for, then you should be including all those applications. But they could be very specific. Maybe they're asking, have you ever applied for a past, green card? In that case, then you make sure you're specific. But if they're asking about all the immigration benefits you've applied for, you need to make sure you are providing that information. But talk to your attorney. How much do you charge to file I-130? Now, this is where we definitely have to talk, because filing an I-130, there are a number of things we have to take into consideration. Are you in the US? Are you outside of the US? If you're outside of the US, okay, fine. We can then talk to you about how long it's going to take and what category you're going to fall in. If you're in the US and you've overstayed, then we want to talk more about your risk. What's the risk level that you'll face? What's the possibility of you getting a notice to appear in immigration court? So make sure you talk to us, and let's sift out some facts and then we can provide a quote for you. If approved for T visa and after 2 years you apply for AOS, if approved, will that AOS be a 10-year? Yes. Filed VAWA December 2024, got prima facie February 14, 2025. My work permit Nebraska, how long to get the work permit? So 6 to 12 months for VAWA. If you have a visitor's visa and you want to change to a working visa without work permit, that's where you need to sit down and talk to us, because we have to understand, what do you qualify for? After marriage-based interview, how long will it take for someone to get his green card? So I've seen it take a day after the interview, at max, maybe a few days. Then the green card actually comes about within 2 to 4 weeks after in the mail. I are one visa and due for citizenship, but we don't file taxes together. What do you advise? Give us a call. Let's talk. Let's understand what your circumstances are and then move forward with that citizenship application in a proper way. Because now remember that they're not just checking boxes off. They're not just saying, have you filed your taxes? Did you not commit a crime? They're not just checking boxes now, right? They're looking at the whole picture. So that may be a question they ask. You don't file your taxes together, but you're applying based on marriage to your US citizen spouse. What's up with that, right? The officers can now pry a little more and ask more questions. If my parents file for me and I come to America for 3 months and go back to Jamaica for 2 years, Um, so I'm not sure what the question is. That sounds like a possibility. Can someone get married while he's in jail? Um, I mean, I've heard of people getting married, but I don't know what, it depends on state law, what's allowed. And there may be some issues with the fact that it's not in person. If you're doing it by telephone or video, then that may present a problem. So it just depends on what's the state law. Is it recognized as legal in the state that you're in? And then, so check with to decide, to determine whether you can legally get married, you need to check with your state. If approved for T, so I answered that. Can my cousin get married in jail as asylum seeker? So if your cousin is in jail, they definitely have a big problem, and the marriage may not be able to fix it. So, they need representation. So, guys, keep in mind now that I know the go to before was, I'll just get married, right? Even though it's really not that easy to just get married. But now keep in mind that they are laser focused on marriage based cases. As I've said before, no case is simple. So they are focused on fraud, and they are really digging into these marriage based applications. So once again, if it's not, if you're doing it just because you think it's going to be a remedy, an easy, quick remedy to get married to a US citizen, think again. So get legal advice at least, and then go from there. Thanks so much for the gifts. Thank you for the love. I really appreciate it, especially being with me at this time of night. Thanks for joining me. I have to go get ready for bed. Thanks, everybody, for your time. And let's just keep the hopes up. As I said before, make sure you're getting the right help. We're here to help, we're solution oriented. And we want to make sure that we see people get this successfully, smoothly. And the best way to do that is to get the right help. Okay. Thanks for sharing the live, everybody. Thanks for the love. And I will see you tomorrow. So I'm working to come here tomorrow, hopefully, or much earlier than this. But like, share, subscribe, follow, hit the notification bell. That is how you're going to see me. You're going to know when I'm coming on, and then you can join me as well. And it also enables other people to see this information that's going to empower them in their immigration journey, right? So keep the faith, keep your hopes up, and don't let this stop you from moving forward. Don't let the changes stop you. But what I say is, and I've had to do this because I practiced in the last Trump administration, and it was similar. We had to adopt, right? And instead of wallowing in why is this happening, we straighten up and we adopt. How can we make it possible, right? So we have the same attitude here at the firm, and it's working, right? We are still pushing forward, and we are changing lives because we are adopting. So do the same and get help, and let's get through it together. All right. Have a good night, everybody. I will see you tomorrow.